Good morning, Engineering Future 3 students. The first day, we kind of all got through it, so we're going to kind of chalk that off to experience and getting things rolling. But as I look at the questions that were submitted online, for those that actually submitted any questions, as usual, the number one thing that you need to be aware of is you need to ask more questions and you need to be more pointed. A lot of you are asking questions about things like materials. And it's not important to know the materials if you don't know what you're making, what you're designing. Because, for example, if I said, how long does it take to get to Duluth? Well, that would depend on a lot of things. What car you're driving, what direction you're going, what roads you use, what the weather's like. So before you can accurately answer, how long does it take to get to Duluth, you have to know a lot of other parts of the variables. And that's kind of the thing that's missing for a lot of you. Some of you only asked one or two questions, which you're not going to get much information that way. So as we talked about in class, and as I mentioned on the video, if you're online at home, asking questions is a skill. And I think it's obvious that some of you either didn't put a lot of effort into it, or it's the first day back and you're really not into it yet. Whatever the excuse is, the bottom line is asking 1, 2, or even 3 questions, 4 questions isn't going to get you much information. At that pace, it'll take you a week and a half, 2 weeks to find out what you're doing. And that's just a lot of wasted time. So my encouragement to you is to think, like we talked about in class here, to think forward and maybe even write down on a piece of paper, pencil out the questions you're going to ask and what you're expecting to get for answers. What do you need to know? What's the most important thing? And materials and the amount of time aren't really necessarily important up front if you don't know what you're doing, because those are going to affect or change once you know what it is you're making. And you need to ask questions that you can't look up on your own. For example, don't ask me about automation, because automation you can look up. There's all types of automation. So you might start by Googling automation and finding out what's involved in automation. What does it include? And from there, it's going to give you some ideas on what questions, specific questions to ask. And we'll answer any questions that are directed and specific. If you ask vague questions like, what is it you want me to do? I'm going to answer the question, I want you to make a project in automation, which you already know. So make sure to think this through a little bit and put some effort into it, and you need to ask more questions. Bottom line is, I think the most questions I saw from any one person was 7 or 8. And even 7 or 8 is not going to get much information. So basically what happens is I'm emailing back the responses. You can look at them, and then today again what you're going to do is ask questions, and hopefully you ask a bunch of them so you get a bunch of information. We'll respond to those, and tomorrow hopefully you'll continue to add more questions and drill down to figure out what it is you're actually doing or going to make here in the area of automation. All right, talk to you soon.